Today we have an incredible guest, Devin Dinofa. My name is Martino, one of the hunters on the Hunters commercial team here in Philadelphia. Devin, I want to let you take the reins on this because you are a very important guy. You are influential in my life greatly. And I just kind of want to get the whole picture of everything you're kind of running over in the, not even in Jersey, but in the whole region. And also just kind of hear a little bit about your story. But first, let's start with who you are, your titles, what you're currently up to right now.
Awesome. Well, Martino, thank you first and foremost for the kind words that I never feel I deserve. So I appreciate.
He's humble, guys. He's humble.
I appreciate that. And I appreciate you having me on here. You guys are doing incredible things. And from the past, let's just say year or so, I got to know you. You are an influential guy and you're doing amazing things and just a rock solid dude, man. And it's hard to come by people that are completely genuine, authentic, have a big vision, want to help and serve people. And you're definitely one of them, man. So keep doing what you're doing. And I appreciate this opportunity to be here with you guys.
Thank you.
As far as me, I'm a partner at TCS Group, New Jersey. So we have a big company in Philadelphia and I represent the New Jersey side. My partner, Gaurav Gambhir, he's like the founder of the whole company. And then, we kind of merged with him on the Jersey side to head the New Jersey division. That's the real estate aspect. I also have an off-market real estate company called REIT LLC, Real Estate Acquisitions Team. Got a few partners with that. So we are hunting down off-market deals in New Jersey, South Jersey, primarily. So we got that. Also, my passion, what I feel my gift is I'm a performance coach, a self-mastery performance coach, and I have a community that I am honored to say Martino is a family member of the Harvest Performance Growth Community.
Shout out the Harvest.
And that's just a testament of, Martino is skilled. He's great. He's incredible, but he has that white belt mentality to where he's always looking to A, surround himself with people that want to grow, that have other skill sets, and B, like he has that white belt mentality to where he's always trying to learn and like, how can I get to that next level? What am I missing? What can I improve in? And that's why you're so good at what you do now. And your acceleration is at such a high level because you're a lifelong learner, man. And I'm honored to have you in that community too, brother. So just want to thank you for that too.
This is not about me. This is about you.
No, I know.
I truly appreciate everything. And I like that quote, white belt mentality, because I've always said I want to be a masterful apprentice. Always. I never want to feel like I've upgraded to that level. So always feeling like I'm learning something keeps me alive in a lot of ways. It keeps me hungry. It keeps me growing. So I appreciate you recognizing that and saying that. But I see that in you as well. And you also are a masterful teacher. And I guess the first thing I really want to talk about is the Harvest, because when I met you, you came to a summit event for my real estate company. You led a seminar and spoke at such a high level and left a lasting impression, not only on me, but the whole group. And we ended up having a great year because of that, even in a down market last year. The Harvest community, like he said, it's a growth community where like-minded individuals come together and they can really, bounce ideas off each other, communicate, collaborate. And it's such an important tool, I think, and community to have for so many people, including myself. Keeps you disciplined, keeps you on track, and it keeps you always wanting to learn more. How did you come to kind of create the Harvest? Because it is such an incredible community. And I asked you kind of before we got on, I was like, how do you even start? Where did that kind of begin for you? And when did you realize you wanted to start a community?
The vision came from, well, it just hit me how like there was another part of this story that I haven't elaborated on with some of the past podcasts. So as I grew my real estate business, right, when I got out of the restaurant business, there was a season in my life to where I've discovered personal development, coaching. A guy named Eric Thomas, as I was in the gym, stumbled across one of his videos, and it forever changed my life because I started putting in personal development into my routine. And then I became, addicted to motivational speakers, coaching, self-development, which I never even knew coaching exists outside of sports, right?
How old are you at this time in your life?
Maybe around 24.
Okay.
Yep, 24 years old. And went down this whole journey of self-development, listening to motivational speakers, coaching. And then that really helped me just have a way bigger vision for my real estate business, have way more action every single day, live and act in such a higher frequency because I started building in different habits, rituals, and routines through my, journey in personal development, I was just living at a much higher level with a much bigger mindset, and I created a much bigger vision for my life. And my real estate business, obviously, it started doing way better, right? Business started getting way better the more I made a better commitment to personal development. Then through personal development and coaching, I started putting out better content, and then I started becoming more influential. And then I realized that, you know what, man, there is an opportunity. I realized that my passion when I was speaking at real estate companies, doing trainings, when people started seeing my acceleration in the business, people were like, man, when you're speaking up there, I got to tell you, whether you know it or not, that's your calling. Speaking and coaching is your calling.
It's the truth.
Maybe you just didn't realize that, but yeah, the real estate's a vehicle. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, man, you know what? That's what I truly feel my calling is. When I'm doing this, I am at the highest frequency I can possibly be at. And there's nothing more that I want to do in the world than do what I'm doing now, than speaking on stages and coaching my one-on-one clients and speaking to my community and seeing people see another version of themselves, but most importantly, go and chase that next version of themselves, right? That is what I love seeing and love being a part of helping people doing. So went down this personal development journey, then went down the coaching journey. And I was like, man, if I really want to do this, I want to make sure that I learn from the best, right? So then what I started doing was seeking out the world's greatest motivational speakers, executive coaches, mental mindset coaches. And I started, there's strategies on how I got into their world and have them coach me. But I started to invest and to find ways to be coached by the best so I can be the best that I can be for others. I went through a whole high-performance coaching program with the number one performance coach in the world, Brendan Bouchard, who a mentor of mine, is a partner in his company, and connected me with him. I started being coached by David Meltzer, who's one of the greatest world thought leaders ever. He used to coach, he used to be the CEO of the biggest sports agency company in the world that the movie Jerry Maguire was made after.
That's right. I think you handed out his books at one of the Harvest events.
Absolutely. So I started being coached from, again, I wanted to learn from the best so I could help people the best way that I potentially could. Yep. And then, so I started coaching for David. And then what happened was people would reach out for coaching. Like, man, I keep on hearing you talk about coaching, but coaching isn't a common thing for business professionals and entrepreneurs, right? Typically, people only think of coaching when they're in sports, right? If you go to a networking event, 300 people there, ask everybody how many people hire coaches for themselves. And it is very, 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 very few. And some that work for companies, maybe they'll say, well, my company, runs a training once a year. My company provides this training class, right? But it's not their designated decision, and they don't mentally understand the importance or even think about, you know what, man, I need to invest in a coach so I can perform at my highest levels, right? So people, as I started growing this brand, people are like, man, can I coach with you? And then it's not cheap for one-on-one coaching, but I hated telling people no, and I always wanted to help people. Right. Then a coach, a mentor of mine, told me about, dude, you should start a community, make it super affordable for people, and gives them access to you. You can help and coach them. And then the ones that want to take a deeper step into it and dig deeper, then they can have that option for the one-on-one and whatever that next group is, the Deep Roots, which in the Harvest, we have that next group. But that was where the Harvest, the community coaching, that was one of the things where that idea came. But the real thing that anchored it is in this season of my life, and the Harvest was born in 2020. So the year leading up to that, I was doing a program called 75 Hard. And, I was reading books, and in that program, you got to read books and you got to do 2 workouts a day.
I was going to say, what is that? Can you give the listeners a little bit of a breakdown of what 75 Hard is? And I'm sure some of them have heard of it, but most people might not know how intense that can be.
So 75 Hard is pretty much noted the world's greatest mental toughness program from a guy named Andy Frisella, who's an incredible, influential entrepreneur who has an amazing podcast called Real AF. It actually started as the MFCO project, which that's how I even found him. But it is a mental toughness program, and a lot of people will call it a fitness program, but it's not. It's a mental toughness program where one of the byproducts is you being the most mentally and physically fit you ever been. It's for 75 days. For 75 days, you got specific tasks that you got to do that are non-negotiable without quit. And if you miss just one of them, you got to start over. right? So this has impacted hundreds of thousands at this point, if not millions of people. But what happens is you got to do 2 workouts a day, 2 45-minute workouts, one indoors and one could be, it doesn't matter, one 45-minute and one of them has to be outside for 45 minutes. You got to read 10 pages a day of a book. You got to drink a gallon of water. You got to take a progress picture each day. And you also got to stick to a diet and you cannot drink alcohol, right?
That last one would be tough for me.
Oh yeah. Right. So you go through this program and, as I was on an outside workout and reading books at the same time, the idea came to me as I was reading a book called The Wealthy Gardener. And then I read another book called Start With Why. And, The Harvest, Wealthy Gardener, right? That kind of talked about, that kind of gave me that idea. And then through that program, I had the idea to start a community called The Harvest.
Very fitting, by the way.
Yeah.
I did not realize that was where the inspiration came from.
Yeah.
Or one of the reasons.
And the whole idea of The Harvest was there was a few things that helped me get to where I'm at in life, right? One thing was networking, right? The importance of networking and meeting people and developing friendships and getting access to rooms and individuals that you have never done being in your neighborhood or being in your friends group that you grew up with, right? Being in different circles and building relationships and networking. So that was very important to me, and that's what really helped me grow my brand and business. On top of that, coming up, I never had people in my family that made 6 figures. I didn't really have real business successful people in my family, people that I can learn from, right? So I had to go and seek out these mentors. So whenever I found somebody through a friend, hey man, it's my uncle so-and-so, dude, this guy, super successful. I was intrigued with that. What do they know that nobody I ever grew up with ever even have access? What do these elite individuals know that I can learn from so I can live life at a high level and not struggle and not just get by, right? And not just be well, we love each other, but there has to be more to life.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Which, by the way, love is probably one of the most important things, but chasing your potential and consistently growing also gives you fulfillment. And you can show people you love them by being the best version of yourself, so that if there's people around you that need financial help, if you're the right guy, you can show them even more that you love them, financial helping them too. So, it is your obligation to be successful. So if you really do love people, you also want to be prepared to be in a financial situation that if one of your loved ones is struggling, you could be there to help them. You know what I mean? So anyway, every time I learned about somebody that was successful or even whatever, maybe found them on social media, I would always do whatever I can to learn from them, right? Take them out to dinner, drive 3 states over, whatever it took to just get one word with them or a lunch with them. And I ended up finding some good relationships with some mentors. And I was like, man, this is incredible. That's what I got to do. Find people who sit where I want to sit and try and add value to them and build relationships with them so I can get knowledge and wisdom from them and maybe do some stuff with them.
Yes.
So I tied in. And then on top of that, right, my love for personal growth, right? And getting fit and mentally and physically fit. And whenever I can surround myself with people that, networking's one thing. I mean, the reality is a lot of times you go network, people are just getting drunk, they're staying out late.
Yep.
It's very common for people to be out after hours, not being home with their family, not winning at home, not winning in their health. Maybe they're winning in business because of networking. That's great. But I wanted to win in all aspects of life.
Yeah. And I feel like so many people just focus on the business side of it because they see the fancy cars, they see the big houses, and they're like, all right, business is what's going to make me money, but who are you going to fill those big houses with?
Yeah.
You're not going to have anyone, like you said, love is the biggest thing. You're just not going to have anyone to share it with if you're not mastering every part of your life. And I see that mistake being made not only by, realtors, but other business owners as well.
Absolutely.
So I think that's a great point that you make.
So after I had all these things, I was like, man, what if I create a community where it's it's the best of everything, right? There's networking, there's learning, right? I can bring in some of the greatest entrepreneurs all across the country so that I and my brothers and sisters in the Harvest can learn from at the same time, right? That same strategy that I use, man, what if I could give other people access to these incredible people that I am able to meet and connect with in my network, and have a community to where there's networking, there's learning, and there's a focus on personal development, right? Mental and physical fitness, getting to that next level, wanting to be good fathers, wanting to be good husbands, wanting to be good wives, wanting to be good significant others. What if slowly we can build an environment and community like this? this would be the best case scenario.
Yeah. But,
And that's where the harvest was born.
wow. So many things to unpack. But I mean, if I'm hearing you right, at a young age, you didn't have those mentors, those modelers within your family. You've gone out and searched for them. By kind of seeing how it really lit you up, you were like, man, other people need to be awoken. Maybe that's the right word. Like, just kind of like realizing like, man, I haven't been living to the highest frequency. So it had kind of encouraged you, once you kind of found that high frequency and that purpose in your life, you immediately wanted to pay it forward, because so many people have taught you kind of the way and the mentality, physically, mentally, how to get into that high frequency. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
And you just kind of pay it forward.
Listen, man, there's levels to everything. Like,
Yes.
a lot of the stuff that I dreamed of when I was a 14-year-old, a 15-year-old, a 12-year-old, a 10-year-old, a lot of the stuff that I dreamed of that, my mom would always say, you better have a good job, right? Because, you want to live in that neighborhood, you better be a doctor or a lawyer. Like, all these things that I dreamed of, like that hero version of my life back then, I've accomplished, right? At a young age, like, 30 years old, living in, 31, living in a neighborhood that, I thought I needed to be, probably one of the youngest families in that neighborhood.
Right.
Right. And, so the visions that I've casted at such a young age, I've accomplished. So I've seen like some major success in my life. Now there's a new hero. There's a new vision of my life that I'm chasing, because I've raised the standard. I want to set the bar even higher for my family to see what their potential is, coming from somebody who didn't come from a rich family, who didn't have the blueprint laid out for me. Right. What you'll find, during Father's Day and my birthday, I'm actually going to tell a story that I haven't told 98% of the world. Right. And I've grown through this spiritually. And, it's just one of those things where it wasn't a thing that, I kind of like hid and kind of kept in for a long time. But from, 1 to 12 years old, it was just me and my mom. So because I've never met my biological dad.
I had no idea.
Yeah. So my father, who's in my life right now, he's been with my mother since she was 14 years old. Now, this is like the old school shit, dude. Like, like your parents were together, you hear that. We were, since 14, and it's like common to have 8 kids. And this is like the old school love, right?
Yeah. I know.
So since 14 years old, they were dating, and sure enough, they had a bad breakup, and my mom wasn't dating him for, let's just say, a 2 to 3 year period. Mm-hmm. And, sure enough, 17-year-old girl, had a little boyfriend, and, got pregnant. Right. And, she always loved my dad. She did not really want to be with this guy long term, and he didn't want her to have the baby. He was like, I don't want you to, and she got a lot of pressure not to have the baby.
Wow.
Right. Thankfully, my mom said, you know what? Like, I'm going to have the baby. Like, something in her said, I'm going to still have that baby. And, that guy, well, I never met him. Still don't even remember his name.
Not one time, just completely. No. Did she ever want to introduce you to him? Or
no, well, it was like she knew that she loved my father, Frank.
Right.
And at the end of the day, like, so this is what happened. So my mom went to my father, Frank, and said, and keep in mind, 17 years old, like, no, mistake, man. Like, how many times we sleep around, one mistake, whatever.
Me at 17.
And that was really her true love. And, my dad was my dad, Frank, was a wild dude. So, like, there's probably a reason why they broke up at that age, whatever, but she always loved him. She went and said, listen, this is the deal. I know we've been broken up, but, I'm pregnant, and I want to tell you I love you. And sure enough, he was there when I was born, but it got to him to where I wasn't his biological son. A lot of pressure. A man, alpha male, and, he couldn't take it. So when I was 1, he left, really? Right? So from 1 to 12 years old, it was just me and my mom. I had no father figure in my life, right? So no, not a lot of people know. Some people ask me, like, man, you and your sister and brother are, like, there's a big separation there, right? And I never told anybody because I always wanted to honor my mother. And then, recently I couldn't hold this in any longer, even to my own brother and sister. Where there was a lot of things that were built up, and I realized why I'm the way I am. And, I just suppressed it. No, it doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me. And then, I was talking to my wife, and she was like, you cannot keep this bottled up inside. Like, your brothers and sisters need to know, like, you need to be your authentic self. You motivate people to tell their story. And one of the main things in your story, you hide that, for a long portion of your childhood, like, you don't know your real dad, and you never had a father figure. in your life and you were able to build this, like this version of yourself. And I feel like, you know, my father now, Frank, 12 years old, like I honor him because, you know, that was hard. Like I couldn't, you know, I'm a hothead. If I was, you know, 17-year-old girl I was dating or whatever, like that, even if it wasn't, like I would still, I don't know what I would do, but he came back and he stepped into my life. And ever since then, he's my dad. You know what I mean? Like, hey, you know, my, whatever, the blood, it doesn't matter, but he's my father in my life. But the reality was, you know, that's a big portion of my childhood. And if, you know, some of the coaches we have and a lot of things when you speak, and I saw you guys had Jen Grover in who I had speaking Harvest, you know, when you talk to a lot of these specialists, they'll say a lot of who you are today has everything to do with you're 0 to 8 years old. And I never believed it, right? I was like, I get the fuck out of here, 0 to 8. Are you kidding me?
No, it's true. It has a huge influence in your life. And just to add to what you were saying about your story, I think the thing about stories is they can either do one of two things. They can either tear you down,
or they can actually empower you.
Be your biggest superpower.
Absolutely. And when people really do share their stories, it makes such a deeper connection with the people around you too. You know, like especially in your community. To be open about that at this point and share your story, man, it speaks volumes to so many others. Even as you're talking, I'm thinking about my story or my stories, the ones I've leaned on and maybe didn't forgive someone on, or the ones that still hold heavy on my heart. And it really motivates me and it encourages me, to tell mine and share mine because you don't know what someone else is going through. So I appreciate you sharing that. And, you know, something that my coach would say back in college was, iceberg, boys, iceberg. You know,
What's
all
that?
you see is the tip of the iceberg as it's floating by. If you look below the surface, though,
Love that.
there's a huge thing going on, a huge rock of ice that no one can really see. So you only see the tip of the iceberg when you're meeting someone, especially in passing, or even maybe sometimes at a networking event. But if you can be like, hey, let's get coffee, maybe share your story. And without expecting it, maybe they'll come back to you and share theirs. And then at that point, when you build that type of connection with somebody, and I'm sure you built it over and over again, as you're talking, I'm thinking, man, how lucky are your clients to have you as their realtor, right? Because you are so transparent, you're effective in your communication, and you really understand your people. You know what I mean? So those are three things right there that make you an incredible agent, let alone business owner, and multiple businesses now at this point. So anyway, that's just the first couple of things that come to my mind. Your story can either empower you or it can tear you down. So just the fact that you've went out, pursued knowledge, turned the story on its fucking head and made it something that is unbreakable to you and a part of you, man, I give you kudos. And anyone out there who is like struggling with their story, this is such an absolute opportunity to be like, you know what? What the fuck? Why am I letting this tear me down? Why am I letting this affect me if it's affecting me in a negative way?
Your story can amplify the growth. Like, I built a Harvest with never even sharing this story. Like, this wasn't built off of, like, you know, some of the most influential speakers, like, all right, their stories, they were out of prison, blah, blah, blah. Like, this happened to them, and that's what they built their brand off of. Right? And I haven't even, because I was struggling with this for a long time, but I haven't even shared this really with anybody. I don't know when this comes out, but my goal is to, you know, on my birthday this year, like actually put out my story to the world. I've already had the conversation with my hero, mentor, my mother, who the good thing is, because I am who I am, she was so good at being a mother to where I didn't even remember that I didn't have a father figure, because she kicked ass so much as a mother to where it wasn't even like, oh, woe is me, I didn't have a dad, because she always just did everything, kept me in sports, like bust her ass, like whatever was needed to be done, you know, she was there. And I had some family, uncles, South Philly, stuff like that. You know, there were some men in my life, but, you know, it is now like, it's really like helping me, getting to me and helping me reflect, because I have my own kids now. I'm like, and then it hits me, I'm like, man, it's just crazy to think that, like, I know how important it is for me to be here at baseball with this kid, but like, I couldn't imagine somebody like, you know, I don't even remember how it was like in sports. Like, you see these kids run to their dad. I'm like, yeah, and I love but like, it just makes me think that, man, like, I just must have not even, like, I was just fucking whatever, just so locked in to where it didn't even impact me that I didn't have a dad to run to learn, to ask this question, to get this wisdom from until I was, you know, a teenager.
Older, 20, 24, like you said, in that range where you were just starting to really dive into self-empowerment.
Where I actually had that male figure as a father figure in my life at like 12.
Right. He came back. Right.
You know, but that's a long childhood to like, you see your friends with their dads and you know how much, like, I think of how much like kissing my kid at night, trying to instill lessons, baseball, like all this stuff that like a father wants to be there for. And I just think, man, my mom kicked ass so much that like, you know, most people, they'd be like, man, you know, it really hurt me to not have that person. Like, but you know, I don't know, maybe that's what drives me to be, you know, the pursuit of being the most incredible father to my kids, because like it's like everything that I always wanted and I didn't have, like I want it to be, you know what I mean? So I think that's why it's like, man, like I want to max out every moment, every lesson. I'm pouring into my kid. Like, dude, my 6-year-old daughter, we're sitting here talking about, she's telling me she wants to start selling shirts, and she was like, how about, I'm sitting there having a conversation, well, you think you're going to make that profit, but let me tell you about taxes, right? And then she's 6. But she's like talking about it. You know what I mean? Like, you know, like that wisdom to be able to get that at such a young age. You know what I mean? Like,
that's incredible. It gives you such a strong why as to why you are the way with your kids as the way you are with your family. I mean, I couldn't imagine having a mother who almost filled in 2 roles, who allowed you to still feel like you were living a normal childhood without maybe having a father figure. So she took on such an incredible role. She sounds like an absolute lovely woman. Oh yeah. Sacrificed like, you know, moms do, but even more. And I wonder, you know, like when you started your family, just selfishly talking, right? And it's funny, I didn't even uncover my story until I got into a relationship with my current girlfriend, who we live together now, right? And she made me realize so many things about the way I was raised, my true story, you know, because we always tell ourselves some BS story, I feel like, but when you can actually tell yourself the truth, it's almost like you're floating on water because you're not struggling to doggy paddle anymore and maybe hold things down. You're just truly floating on water on your truth. And it sounds maybe a little bit deeper than most people want to go, but it's the truth. It really is the truth. So I can understand you wanting to share it and finally get it out later this year. And we can time this up for a better time.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Whenever that's out. But point being is I didn't realize my leaning on drugs for a long time. You know, I didn't really look at that problem in the mirror and address it fully. I'd maybe brush it off to daddy issues, something like along those lines, because I had my father in my life, but I'd see him once a week. He'd work nonstop, but he provided us with a great childhood. We had issues until I was 21 years old, and now we have one of the best relationships, and I'm truly grateful for it. But I would always blame my addiction issues with other things. Yeah. And now I'm in this space where I don't need it anymore. You know, this is my new addiction, is growth. And I see that in so many other people who might have struggled with addiction in the past. They get into entrepreneurship and it's just like, wow, getting that deal done, growing in this way, learning that nugget of information that you'll travel states across to get. But point being is I was never...
With that being said, you know, when I coach people and some of the messages that I talk about, like addiction is a superpower, right? Yes. So it can, you know, it can be your worst enemy or it can be your biggest weapon, right? Like to help you grow. So a lot of times when you see people like, man, they're addicted to alcohol and you see somebody that's sober, what do? They get addicted to fitness. Next thing you know, you see them completely shredded. Right. Because they took their addiction, that superpower of addiction, and pointed it towards something that will empower their life, a healthy addiction. Or they stop being addicted to drugs and then they become addicted to business and then they're freaking monsters. Yes. Right? Because they're just laser focused on it. They can't stop thinking about it. They're getting after it. Yes. It's a superpower. So if any of you right now are like, man, like, and some of you right now need to really think about that, because there's a lot of things that, whether you want to admit it or not, that you lead on, that you do a lot, that, man, if I told you don't do that for 60 days and you're like, no, I can never do that. Well, do the work now to identify like, hey, you know what? Maybe there's something to unpack here, and maybe I need to drop this, and maybe I am, you know, I don't want to put it out there, but maybe I have some type of addiction to this where I need to point it towards something else that's going to better my life. That's not going to be something that people are going to want to hear right now. That's going to be a whole reflection, self-development work. Same thing with alcohol, dude. The reality is, like, listen, there are people that I know that if you told them, dude, all right, you don't have a problem with alcohol, right? I want you to don't drink for 90 days. And then every weekend, I want you to go out and hang out with your friends at the bar and don't drink, right? And then, oh, damn, you know what? Man, I really can't have a conversation with people without being buzzed or drunk. Man, you know what? Like, I can never. It's like, yo, listen, man, are you trying to be elite? Are you trying to bring your life to like smash devices? I'm not saying that, but like, that's a challenge. Like, challenge yourself. And listen, Do it for 60 days. All right, yeah, cool. Like, fuck yeah, I got control over that. All right, you're cool. As long as something isn't a vice on you, that's how you do the work to become the most elite version of yourself. It takes courage. It takes self-development, right? It takes being okay with looking something, and it takes wanting to get better and set a different example and a better example for the ones that come after you, which most people, it's all about them. It's not about other people.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So they don't want to do that work.
I so see that it's about your future kids. It's about your future family that isn't just in your lifetime, but after you go. And not only your family, but this harvest family that you built with your brothers and sisters, which I appreciate you referring to them as, because they truly do feel like that after some time. But yeah, like going back to the addiction thing, I remember telling, and this goes back to what I was saying before, like when I met my girlfriend, Amy, she was like, why are you always working? Like it's 7 o'clock, right? I was like, and I didn't really know why I would work so much. And just like, we wouldn't spend as much time. Maybe it was just truly because I actually realized like, man, I have an addictive personality and I have people in my family who have passed from drug overdoses. So the story I told, right. Yep. And I think everyone has had someone, a crazy aunt, a crazy uncle, maybe they're not crazy at all, but just someone who was misunderstood for too long of a time and didn't find the right outlet for it. And that was such a, honestly, amazing thing you said, that it can be pointed in the right direction.
Yeah.
So when I had these conversations with Amy, it made me realize, man, I do have the superpower. And we had a conversation one night. I was like, when I do this and I progress and I really feel productive, I'm at this frequency that I really don't want to come down from. And we had to have a moment where it's like, either you come to my frequency and you start finding your highs, or this is the end almost, you know?
Yeah.
And she'll say, you know, I was a hard ass maybe, or hard on her, but some days she'll be like, thank you for being the way you are, because my life is now a certain way. I didn't see this for myself even. You saw it in me. Because I think people like us, we really do have these visions, and you were having them at a young age, going back to 8 years old, visions of what you wanted. And I just don't think enough people maybe even have a vision for that. Like, so point being is like, it's not always good to just kind of admit to a story. Find another way to look at it, repoint it. Jen Groover is an incredible speaker. And you said she spoke.
Yeah, she spoke in the Harvest.
At the Harvest.
Wow, yep.
Amazing. But she even talked about that. She's like, rephrase these questions, reframe these questions, reframe your story, point it in the right direction, and it could be your superpower.
Yeah.
So, and it applies to almost any story, not just, you know, parenting, addiction. There's so many things that we could go into, but it's amazing how you can reframe and use people like, you know, you are a mentor to me, like some of your mentors are to you. Rely on people, you know, rely on a community to really bring you clarity on what that is.
Can I share something with you too? One of my coach, David Meltzer, he always says, man, it's like sometimes like we need to stop calling it work. Right? It's like, if you're happy and you're in frequency and you're in a flow state, like, and you're building, right? You're progressing. Like Dave always says, he's like, I don't call it work. He's like, I call it activity. It's activity I get paid for and activity I don't get paid for. Right? And now, do we want to love and care for our, like, one, they gotta know who they're in a relationship with. Like, just love me for me, knowing that I will also like care enough to make sure that I'll be, you know, addicted to showing you that I love you.
Yes.
You know, so we just as intentional I am with my business, we will be intentional scheduling our time together, loving each other, stuff like that.
Yep.
But you're 1000% right, man. If it's like you got to love me for the whole me. Right. Yeah. And that has to be, you know, it, you know what I mean? Or else you're going to get to that point where it's just, listen, this is who I am. I'm willing to, you know, adjust, you know, some things to make sure I always show that I'm making an effort to love you.
Yeah.
But like, this is what makes me happy. I know you consider it work, right? But like, this is what makes me happy, is building, solving problems. Like the average person calls it work, right? And
like
for me, this is
85% of people.
This is living right here. Like I can't sit on a beach for 5 days straight and do absolutely nothing, right? I need to be doing stuff like this, man. This is like, man, if you could, whatever you would even measure, like frequency, like me being on a beach, sitting there looking in the, hearing the waves, or jamming with you on this, dude, like that meter would be like, yep, wherever that dude is, like that's where he needs to stay, because it ain't that high on this beach sitting there doing nothing.
Right.
If you're like in the beginning of this podcast, you know, Tony Robbins says growth equals happiness.
Yes.
Right? If you're not growing, you're dying. However you want to put it. But the reality is, when he said, there are two things after doing studies with billionaires, and he met with a bunch of them, that they said that they needed, because, we've all heard billionaires that commit suicide. Why? Like, they had all the money in the world.
Right.
Why did they commit suicide, right? Well, because there was two things that they needed, right? One of the things was they needed contribution, right? They needed to be built, like contributing to something.
Yes.
Right? Contributing to a business, contributing to the world, like growing, working on something. And they needed community. They needed to be around people.
Right.
Right?
If you're going to build that house, who's going to be in it?
Yeah, exactly. They need to be sharing a journey, communicating, like human to human experience. So contributing, contribution means building something, working on something, whether it's they're working on a company, working on a deal, helping somebody, coaching somebody, contributing to the world, to the universe, to the energy of what's happening consistently around us. Because this is all energy regardless.
Yeah.
If you really want to get nerdy with it.
No.
But on top of that, outside of contribution, it's community, like being around people, like in the office, on the Zoom, like around people.
Yeah.
Right? That's what they needed, man.
And if you really do love what you do, man, it shouldn't, like you just said, it shouldn't even be considered a task. It should just be called activity, like going to the playground, going to the beach. Like, you just truly enjoy those environments. Like, I honest to God, I'm the same way, man. I like look forward to this podcast all day. I was like, man, I can't wait to just like, you always talk about golden nuggets on the harvest. I get my golden nuggets from you every week. So it's like, to hopefully be able to share that with people watching something, a community that I'm building with real talk here. It just gets me more and more excited every time we, shoot an episode, or, we're just putting one more block on the foundation, one more stepping stone on the rise to mastery. And and talk about just, you've already introduced me to so many great people. One that I've already kind of communicated with and joined another community with, the Unblinded group with Sean Callaghy. How did you meet Sean? And I was going to ask you a question really quick, and maybe tell me about how you met Sean, but tell me what it was like when you were pursuing these mentors. Like, how did those conversations go? And why did they want to meet with you in particular? Because I'm sure so many people reach out to these people like David Meltzer. You know what I mean?
So a good story about David Meltzer. I always like to immerse myself in whatever it is that I'm trying to learn and grow with. So when I talk to everybody in the harvest side, what is your next? All right, you need a complete immersion. So what does that mean? Like, all right, let's just say you're trying to learn golf, right? Dude, start following, start watching YouTube videos. Obviously, the basic thing is start getting reps there, but start following golf coaching accounts. Like, so everywhere you're looking, you're like, it's top of mind. You're getting tips. You're like, it's a full immersion into it.
Yeah.
Right.
Actually, when I got into real estate, it's funny. Like, I watched hundreds of YouTube videos. It just didn't just happen. It wasn't natural. I just immersed myself in everything, just to your point.
Yeah. And then, so what I did was I started following the absolute best world-changing coaches, entrepreneurs and coaches. And then one night, 10 p.m. at night, I'm laying next to my wife, and I'm like, I'm just going to direct message these guys. And I had a strategy. It wasn't just like, hey, can you coach me? No. Right? Yeah. I was, I've also learned through coaching and helping people, like, how to approach high-level people. It's like, all right, what could you do for them? Like, how could you, like, pique their interest? What's in it for them? And, I inboxed Tim Grover. I mean, you name it. Like, he was Michael Jordan's coach. David Meltzer was one of them. And I said, hey, listen, I just want to let you know you're very inspiring. I forget exactly. I could probably scroll and find the actual thing, but, I just wanted to know if there was an opportunity for me to get you in front of, and speak to my offices in Philadelphia. And I would love to meet and coach you. And I had screenshots of magazines that I made through recognitions, through Man of the Year awards, all that stuff. So I can give them social proof within 2 minutes of scrolling. Connected me with assistant, said I'm speaking at a conference called Scaling Chutzpah. Dave's Jewish in New York. Spoke with Sarah Blakely, the founder of Spanx, the founder of Models, you name it. Went out there, grabbed stuff. I waited in line because there was a bunch of people, looking to meet him afterwards. And I shook his hand. I said, hey, listen, prior to that, I realized that he was on the board of a nonprofit foundation called 50 for 50, the Unstoppable Foundation. And he was doing 50 birthday parties throughout the year to raise money for the Unstoppable Foundation to build schools in Africa. And I told him, through this, I was like, all right, I need to hit him with something else. So when I finally met him, I told him, I was like, look, this is what I'm also going to do for you. I just want you to coach and mentor me. I'm going to throw a 50 for 50 birthday party for you in Philadelphia to raise money because, again, networking, that was one of the things. I used to host very big networking events in Philadelphia. So I already knew how to throw events. So then he shook my hand and was like, look, I'm going to coach and mentor you. And ever since then, I've been coaching with him, coaching for him, in business with him, Instagram shows with him. And then through investing to get in the rooms that he told me to get into, I've been through the principles and strategies that I coach on. I've been developing incredible relationships with some of the top entrepreneurs in the world through the rooms that he's been getting me in on. And what do? I bring these same individuals in to speak in the Harvest, to add incredible value to my community members.
Yes. And there's been a handful that have made an impact on me already. And I've only been part of the Harvest for 3 months now. What's it been? Maybe 3?
Yeah, 2 or 3. And I'll tell you right now, I have another speaker coming in, and I just got the intro to him. He's like a high level PGA Tour golf coach. Like he coaches
dialed into that.
Some he does mindset for some of the biggest golfers in the world. So I'm gonna I just got the intro to get him booked to speak in the Harvest to talk about mindset. I guarantee you he's gonna talk about visualization. He's gonna like mentally visualizing those reps before it even happens.
Yeah. And it's so funny. First off, I'm like a huge golf fan. Like, right now the US Open's on in the TV in the living room. You saw Colin and the Waybar guy, shout out Waybar. But you saw those guys watching it. And first off, that would be the most incredible thing to listen to, because I'm always watching them go down the 18th hole or 17th hole, the last stretch, right? They got one stroke, either they're up or down. I've always wanted to understand their thought process, especially holding a lead, because I think that's the hardest thing. When you're chasing, you already know the number to hit. Yeah. But when you're holding a lead, to not only hold it, but keep going up, you know what I mean? The mentality behind those guys is what fascinates me more than the swing, more than what clubs they're using. Who gives a shit about that? It's truly what's up here between the ears that's going to separate the good from the great.
Yep.
So first off, I'm just excited to hear that.
Were you on that Tony Childs call where
you can't get to
he was like,
a scratch with the same swing that got you to a 6? Or most golfers are at a 6 handicap, you said.
Yeah, like
not even
their
most
best
golfers.
is at a 6 handicap, and he's like, why? He asked the #1 golf coach in the world. Yeah. They got all the way to that point. Why can't they get to X, which is like a lot better? Like it's almost like the most elite like score you can get. And he was like, because none of them are willing to change their swing. And that was the lesson in life. Like if you want to go from making 20 grand a month to 2 million a month, all right, you got to have a different swing. Like whether it's market to a different audience, have different strategic partners, stuff like that, man. And that was an incredible lesson. And this is the elite knowledge, right, that you get from being in the Harvest community. These people, you got to pay thousands of dollars to see them on stage, and we bring them in multiple times a month to come in, and I'm sitting there as a student just like everybody else.
White belt mentality.
That's right, man. Absolutely.
Just that lesson alone right there, it just kind of, the one thing that sticks out to me is what gets you to where you are is great. But what's going to get you to where you need to be put in an uncomfortable situation. It's not comfortable for someone to hear. You need to change your entire business. You need to, kind of redo your systems, because you've already, at least in your head, you're like, man, I've worked so hard to get to where I am. Now I got to do more. And if you have a strong built-in why, conditioned in, coached on, like, when you have that vision, a lot of people are like, yeah, let's do it. And then some people are afraid of just kind of losing their swing because they don't know if they're going to get to that level. So like
one way you're doing it too, just so you guys know, and this is a real life example, right? Sitting here at a company, Rarity Real Estate.
Yes, sir.
I don't know if there's something at the other real, you guys, my buddy Jim, all that stuff, and you guys are putting up incredible numbers. And, there was a change in the swing, right? Most residential realtors, like they come in, they can go and chase the next single family row home to list, right? Or then there's an idea, you know what, man? Instead of chasing one listing, how can I chase the opportunity to list 50, right? That's a change of mindset. That's a change of swing. You know what? Instead of trying to prospect and get this, I'm going to prospect land development deals. Change in swing, completely different income stream. A prime example of, in any business, you can figure this out. How could I change my swing to triple my income per month? It's not easy. You got to grow through it. It takes time, but it's worth it when you get on that other side. And that's the case in point of what we mean by be willing to change your swing. That's exactly the play that you guys are running here, to where it's like, how do you do that many deals? Well, it's not just, a lot of times just going after that single family row. Like you need to find ways to list 50 of them, 60 of them. Yeah. Right? And that's what you guys do over here. It's such a good job.
I'm happy that you recognize that, because I'm in this building and I don't even realize that that's a great example of it.
Oh, 1,000%.
boy, I mean, we took off a brand that was number 2 in the city, replaced it with a new brand, but it actually really made people turn their heads and be like, man, I really want to work with someone like that. I mean, we can dive into all that another time, but like the way he divided up our land acquisitions with the Hunters real estate team and then selling them through our residential team, Rarity Real Estate, it makes things so much cleaner. And when I tell my clients about this rebranding, it's not only received with like, oh, that's great for you guys. It's received with like, when can we do our next deal? Which is like it's a very ballsy move, just to break it down. Like, so whatever you were thinking, Jim, I don't know what you were thinking, but I think
he's thinking big. That's
thinking
what he's
big,
thinking, man.
right?
And Jim, what's he do? He invests in coaches.
Yes.
He invests to be in specific rooms. He gets mentors. He gets coaches who think way bigger than him.
Yes.
Right? You're around 5 millionaires. You're going to be the 6th at some point. If you run the play, you're around 5 dudes that smoke cigarettes, hang at the bar and are broke. You're going to be the 6th one that smokes cigarettes, hangs at the bar every weekend, man. That's what he does.
You're right. One of Jim's favorite quotes, just to that point, is you are the average of the 5 people that you surround yourself with.
Yeah.
You're the average. So look at the closest 5 people in your life and you'll really know quickly who you are in that rank. And once again, it's not comfortable to tell yourself the truth on where you are, but boy, it will literally open your eyes to all the possibilities of who you can be. So
the sooner you have the cojones or the courage, for my females out there.
We'll say courage, yes.
Yeah. The sooner you have the guts to do that, the sooner that you can, I'm a big faith guy, so I feel like God sends me visions and messages. Oh man, listen, man, like I know you think that what you're doing now is good, but man, I wish that right now you could see who I put you down here to be. And you are nowhere near close to that. Like, step into that event. Like, he'll start giving you visions of that, right? But what does that take, man? You got to die to yourself. Like, everybody wants, oh man, I had this good line in my head that I just heard. It was like,
I know the feeling.
Everybody wants, what's the word that starts with an R, where it's like you rise almost. Everybody wants,
like a revelation, maybe.
Right. Yep. All right. Let's
fancy word or a simple word.
No. It's almost like a spiritual word almost, but for the most part,
redemption.
Like, everybody wants to have a reinvention, right? And that's not the word, but like everybody wants to like become a better version of themselves, but nobody wants to go through what it's going to take to kill the version of who they are now. Like looking at themselves in the mirror and be like, all right, what are my bad habits? Who am I surrounding myself with? Like, how do I need to think? Like, the reason why you're not where you want to be now is because you're not that person now. And that's okay. And the good news is that everybody has that opportunity to put their foot down and be like, you know what? I'm going to become that version. And I have a method for this. It's called the C4 method. It's one, you got to have the courage to want greater for your life or your business or yourself. Like, you got to have the courage to think big about that.
Yeah.
Right? The second thing is you got to this is a way to expedite it. The second thing is, all right, who sits in that position now? Who's the expert? Who specifically coaches on this that has proven results? And you invest in a coach, right? The third thing is you surround yourself with community. And again, this is like the cheat code to it. You surround yourself and invest to be in a community of people that are on that same mission. Right? So it's not just one thing to have the intimate coaching on that, to turn decades into days and to buy time and to be held accountable to continue to take that step. But it helps and it becomes easier when you're around a community of people that are on that same mission too. Why do you think AA, recovery, they want you to be in community with other people to inspire each other to stay on the path?
Yeah.
Right? And then so courage, coaching, community, and then the last C is consistency, right? No matter what, you got to know that you have to stay on that path, never quit, and be consistent. Show up every day. If you fall off one day, get right back on it. Consistently stay on that path and that journey until you become that version of yourself. No matter how hard it is, if you get knocked off, get right back on. Yep. Be consistent on it, man. That will help. That's like a cheat code recipe to get to that next version of you. And then it doesn't matter how high you are, because it's still relevant for, if you're a multimillionaire, it's still relevant to be a billionaire.
Yep.
Right? Same play. Again, let me break it down for you. Have the courage to be like, you know what? Like, I want to chase that type of wealth. Right? All right. who coaches billionaires, right? Who's a billionaire who knows that player? All right, let me hire to be coached by that person. Okay, what community, what rooms do I need to be in with people that are multimillionaires or maybe a community of billionaires to invest in, to be in that room? All right, and make sure I have the courage to stay consistent and be on this and do whatever it takes to stay on and continue to do the work. And eventually you can get to that billionaire.
Mm-hmm. No, I love that. And it's funny, you listen to Tony Robbins a little bit.
Yeah.
I think he always stuck with me when he said this in one of his cassettes. That's how old my dad actually had the original sets and passed them on to me. And I'm in the car listening on my CD player. And he said something. He's like, most people ask themselves, the first question they ask themselves when they hit this certain point in their lives is, what do I do? And it's like, you need to start by asking yourself, what do I want? And then the to-do list will just come. So I think the first step in your process, right, is just kind of the courage to say where you want to be. Saying right now is not enough. But a lot of people fall into that, what do I do kind of mentality? Because unfortunately, the schooling system, whatever you want to blame it on, kind of raised us to be employees, or like maybe not employees, but just kind of workers. And that's what served the country for a long time. But you notice a lot of the best entrepreneurs were shitheads in school, right? Not saying we were. I mean, I was an AB student, but it's like so many people ask themselves, well, what do I do? What do I do? It's like, man, what do you want? A whole different path of thoughts you're going to go down if you ask yourself that question.
So if that helps you and it's like, man, you become clear with that, but let's just say you're like, man, I get it, but like, man, it's just, and it's a very common thing. Like, I really don't know what I want right now. I'm trying to figure it out, right?
Yeah.
And so Jesse Itzler said, who's an incredible speaker. You ever heard of Jesse Itzler? I would definitely, dude, he's one of the best speakers I've ever heard.
Where's he from? What does he do?
So Jesse Itzler actually is married to Sarah Blakely.
Okay.
Yeah, dude. He
founded Spanx, you were saying? Sarah Blakely?
Sarah Blakely's the founder of Spanx. Jesse Itzler, I mean, there's a million things that he did. You got to follow him. He was like, he started a company called Marquis Jets, never even knew how to fly a plane. He was also famous for writing jingles for NBA teams when he was like 18 years old.
That's unreal.
Dude, he's just a real like hood dude, like white dude, but like hood dude. Like, and when he speaks so much passion, he's just a super successful entrepreneur. He has a different approach, right? The opposite approach of like, hey, Tony Robbins, figure out what you want to do first. Like, what do you have a passion for first? And then reverse engineer it. Well, Jesse Itzler, and this is just for people that like, man, I don't know what I want. Even when I try and think about it, I don't really know like what I want. Yep. A lot of times it's because people don't have the courage to think big and they have all limiting beliefs, their past story, like they really know what they want, but they don't have the courage to believe in it.
Right. They don't believe their identity matches with that.
Exactly. 1,000%. So Jesse Itzler, on the other hand, said, what I want you to do is write a list of what you don't want. Write a list of what you don't like, what you don't love doing, what you hate. And then once you write down all that stuff, that will help you identify what you do want.
Wow. If you don't know where you want to start and you're just like, I don't know, writing down a list of what you don't want will hopefully process of elimination, like you were saying.
Yep.
I think that's so evident. I'm going to start asking my girlfriend that, when I'm asking her what she wants and she's like, I don't know. I'm like, all right, what don't you want?
Write a list of what you don't want in your next career, in your next business, what you don't enjoy, what seems like hell to you.
Right.
You know what I mean? And next thing you know, you probably guide you to a field or something else that you do want.
Just a step. And I think so many people put pressure on like their ultimate goal. It's like, dude, just take the first step. See where that step lands you, right? David Meltzer introduced you to that next person, then that next person, then that next person. And then of course you've been able to build a community and provide so much value just from taking those steps and not thinking I need to leap to the moon right away.
Yeah.
So it could be intimidating for a lot of people, but that's a great idea for a lot of people figuring out what they want in life. Figure out what you don't want first.
Yeah.
I love that. We're coming up on an hour here. So we'll wrap soon. I want to just end on a funny story, or maybe not even funny, an interesting story in your business, in your life, in your real estate career, in your profession. I guess we'll just keep it simple because I'm sure we could go into a lot. Maybe a deal that actually closed that you were like, wow, I mean, this was a crazy deal, or maybe a funny deal or something along those lines.
Okay. Oh man, I got to really think about this one because there's
too many.
Yeah, dude, this is a wild business, ladies and gentlemen, a freaking wild business.
Truly is.
I can't think of anything that was funny, man, because this shit is stressful.
I feel you. It's hard. You really got to sit there and maybe think about it for 10
all right,
minutes.
I'll tell you one deal that I did.
Yep.
When we were we bought a property in Brewery Town, and what we wanted to do was we wanted to buy it and add a floor to it and renovate it.
Okay.
So it was like a sight unseen deal. So we closed on it, and sure enough, once we got in, we realized that there was a tree through the back of the house, right? So
Through the back of the house?
Through the back of the house.
Like the
somehow.
stump maybe was growing out, or was it like a branch that was just piercing?
Dude, like a whole tree, like through, like damn near through the roof, through the kitchen or something like that. Yeah. So anyway, this is, again, man, this is, and by the way, this is from my beginning stages of real estate investing and stuff.
How old were you this time?
This was, in the late 20s. So it was like a sight unseen deal. Of course, the wholesaler didn't disclose, and we couldn't get in to see the inside. But it was we felt like it was a good deal. So it ended up going from something that we can just rehab and add a floor to we had to knock the whole damn thing down.
Wow.
So that's just,
that changes.
it's not, listen, man, this shit ain't no funny story by any means, but this is, this is the crazy stuff that can happen in real estate. And I know some of you will be like, you dumbass, you should have went. And I probably should have, but there was no way to get in there. And it was like one of those deals where you got to, there's a lot of interest, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And, you didn't see the tree because you can't even get through some of these back alleys. And, that was a wild story I can give the audience. So this is just some of the fun stuff that happens in real estate. And thankfully, we bought right, though. That's the key, man. It's all the money is made on the purchase. Remember that.
What do you mean by that?
Like, you have to buy. You cannot do a deal off the potential. You have to buy right? So you got to buy at such a good price that even if there is mistakes, you can still be safe. Right? You can't be pressured into overpaying for a deal because there's multiple bids. Even with my farm that went south, I bought right. So even when shit went south, I can still sell it and make a little bit of money. The money is made on the purchase. And I've learned that from very successful real estate mentors of mine.
Amen. No, I think that's a great piece of advice. Video cut out, but we're still rolling here. Guys, make sure you see your properties before you maybe purchase them, but also buy right. Devin, man, thank you so much for coming on, sharing the knowledge, sharing your story. It's truly insightful for myself, and I just appreciate your time as always.
Yeah, no, man, this is an honor. And dude, thank you. You're an incredible host. This is hard when I interview people. Everybody thinks, even when at my Harvest Live events on stage, everybody thinks, oh, it's easy to interview people. So like, this is a skill set, man, and you got it. You're natural in it. And I appreciate you. I appreciate you having me on. For those that are listening, Facebook, Devin Dinofa, Devin. Last name Dinofa. Instagram, Devin_Dinofa. You can also follow the Harvest Performance Community on Instagram. If you have any questions about that stuff, feel free to follow me, DM me. I would love to hear that you're listening to the show, most importantly. So yeah, make sure you send us a message. Let us know that you heard it.
Yes, we're going to have this on YouTube. There's going to be links in the comments below. And as always, guys, if you're liking the content, the people that we're bringing on, feel free to subscribe, drop a like. It really helps us and our brand. So, Dev, thank you. I will see you on Wednesday.
Sounds good, brother. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. All right, guys. See ya.